So, Encanto is Disney Animation's latest feature, like I just mentioned a little while ago. It was directed by Byron Howard, Jared Bush, written by Jared Bush and Charisse Castro-Smith, with songs by Lin-Manuel Miranda, music by Jermaine Franco, cinematography by Nathan Warner, Alessandro Giacomini, and Daniel Rice. Had to mention that because there's a lot of elements that go into this movie that make it work really, really well. It's particularly like the lighting, which makes the difference in anything, but particularly animation. So I had to throw that in there and give them some shine. The cast is as follows: Stephanie Beatriz, John Leguizamo, Maria Cecilia Botero, Diane Guerrero, Jessica Darrow, Angie Cepeda, Wilmer Valderrama, Carolina Gaitan, Mauro Castillo, Adasa, Renzi Feliz.
That's how I'd pronounce it.
Yeah. Ravi Cabot Conyers, Maluma, and Alan Tudyk. Our Latin king, Alan Tudyk. He's like Disney's golden egg.
Yeah.
They put him in everything. And yeah, I found this out. Encanto is the 60th film from Walt Disney Animation Studios, which I thought was really, really cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just interested in your general impression of the movie as we go into like certain story beats and things like that.
Okay. Well, I really liked it. Like you said, Disney Animation, Pixar, a lot of animated movies recently. It's like you can't help but comment on the fact that they're beautiful. Sorry, the cats are playing. They just ran inside. And this movie was beautiful, especially with that like mystical, magical element. There's a lot of like flickering lights and stuff like that. That was like really, really pretty to watch. I also appreciated, I think we mentioned this in the what was that movie called? Silenzio Bruno.
Oh, Luca.
In the Luca review that we did, or part of the Shallow Dip, we mentioned that it was a much more laid back, like, what's a good way to put it? Because it's still like a big grand adventure,
right?
Kind of mystery movie,
right?
But it was toned down from like a Moana, or a Tangled, or a Frozen. It was small. We stayed in one place, and like I mentioned when we did the Luca review, I appreciate that because I don't know, just it doesn't always have to be like so big,
right? And
this massive like undertaking. I kind of like that they stayed in one spot the whole movie.
Yeah.
And we really focused on this one family. That being said, I mean, overall, I did very much enjoy the movie. And I think it's well worth, especially a matinee ticket, to go and see it. But if you go later at night, there will probably be less children. And I mean, it's for children. But like children, turns out, they don't know like how to act. They don't know how to be quiet in a movie theater. I'll just say it. You can't get too mad at them because it's like not their fault. But goddamn. But I don't know. It was good. It was probably at the level that I expected, but it didn't blow me away. And I thought some of the music was not at the caliber that I would expect for Lin and Disney. Maybe that's just because Moana was like so fantastic. Like every song was a bop.
Yeah.
So it's hard to compete with yourself in that regard. But even some of it felt like copy and paste lyrics from every other song that Lin-Manuel Miranda has written. And it had that Lin-Manuel like essence, certain like chords that he does all the time that you can hear it and be like, oh, this sounds like a Lin joint. I appreciate that. I don't dislike that. And I think the music was like different enough. It was just lyrically sometimes I'm like, but also again, it's a children's movie. Things are going to be cheesy. They're going to talk about being free and being yourself. That's just part of what you sign up for when you go to watch it. But that was the one part, especially that first number. That was like, and they had a lot to do. They had to introduce all of these characters in this family. That's a big undertaking. It was a big fucking family. But I was just like, I don't know. That first song, I wasn't vibing with it. But also, to be fair, there was a song in Moana. I'm going to keep comparing it to Moana because I feel like that's an even comparison considering who did the music for both. But famously, one song in Moana that I did not vibe with when we first watched it, which is
Shiny. Because I had the same exact reaction, but it's one of my favorite songs.
Exactly. Second, third, fourth. 18th listen, I'm like, damn, I love that song.
It's a great song. Yeah.
So maybe it's just one of those where I have to like go back and listen to the music isolated without the story behind it and actually appreciate it. It might have just, I think it's just because it was the first one and it was like a lot of information to take, and I was kind of like, what the fuck are we doing here?
Right. So it's kind of the similar thing that I wrote was the story, and we'll get more into this in just a little bit, but the story itself was definitely not what I was expecting. I was expecting more of like a
grand
a world, like a world building, like a world adventuring, like type of adventure story, especially with all these elements of magic and things like that. So I was expecting something more similar to a Moana, but we got this really like intimate story. I mean, all things considered, even with the magical elements there, that explored things like topics such as like, you know, family dynamics and, you know,
insecurity.
Yeah. And not like, even just one version of it. Like, it's not even just the main character. Like, we really explore several characters and like insecurities and how that can make you act towards other people. Because even Mirabel feels a certain way about one of her sisters. And then you come to find out, like, well, her sister's not been happy either. And it's like, oh, I get it. Like, it's one of those, like, classic, like, well, I get, even though life seems perfect for you, I get it. I get now that it's not.
Yeah, it's like perception, dealing with, like, how someone's perceived versus how they perceive the world and their life and all that stuff, which I think that's cool. That's unique. I feel like that's not something that you go so in depth in like a lot of children's.
Yeah, for a movie like this, and especially when you have all these other elements and we see like all these examples of their gifts or their powers. Yeah, it was just something I really appreciated, and we'll get more into detail toward like the end of the movie and how that affected me and why it was so powerful for me. But I want to talk a little bit about the songs, like that you started bringing up. First thing I want to mention is that Stephanie Beatriz,
she was singing her ass off.
So brava. I agree. I don't think the music in this is as memorable as Moana.
That's a good way to put it.
But I will say, I listened to the whole soundtrack as I was typing up this particular shallow dip, like all the talking points and stuff. And the music's good. The music is very good, especially getting toward the end of the opening number. I think for me when watching it, the melody is very repetitive. So like there's a lot of information, but also like
it sounds the same over and over again. Yeah.
And you bring up a good point. Like Moana, the opening number for Moana was really Where You Are, and like when you knock it out of the park, that hard, like it's hard to like. But anyway, I don't think it's as memorable, but listening to the music on its own, it is some of the most interesting music I think he's written for an animated movie, because now he's got a few. Now he had Moana, he has this, and he also has Vivo that came out earlier this year.
Yeah, and I didn't watch that.
I mean, that music in there is amazing. Like, I also really, really love that music. But that one, I would say, caters even more to like certain numbers, I should say, caters more to like, I'm going to sing to you how I'm feeling. Whereas this, it kind of makes you think a little bit more. Like some of the numbers that I just kind of find myself kind of gearing toward or finding myself more interested in. I do like the opening number quite a bit, especially getting into the later half when they're all trying to figure out what Mirabel's gift is. Because then we start getting into this like rapid fire, like speak, sing, rapping thing. Which is really cool. And it also kind of, this movie does a really great job. The songs in this movie does a really great job of letting you know how the characters are feeling as well. But like through the music. So like when it picks up, it's because she's like trying to get away real quick and they're kind of following her. But also like Surface Pressure, the one that Luisa sings, the big strong one.
That's my favorite song.
That's a great song. And it's just so unexpected. What's cool is that the character herself is this quite literally like physically powerful. Like that's her gift. She has super strength. But to see someone who comes off so strong have this moment of like vulnerability and is singing about how she's cracking under the pressure. And how she doesn't think she's strong enough for it. And what I think something she says in the song is something to the effect of like, what am I without my strength? Basically.
Right.
Like, what good am I if I can't do what's expected of me?
Yeah.
And like, damn, that's that's a really powerful thing to like insecurity to like bring up, because I think a lot of people feel that way. And we had a similar moment with Isabella's song. Another song I really, really enjoyed was We Don't Talk About Bruno.
Yeah.
That one is probably the most Lin feeling.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of like counter melodies and layering and stuff, and just all the stuff I love. Yeah, but you were saying you also, one of your favorite songs was Surface Pressure. Mm-hmm. Is there anything about that? Like,
one, I appreciate hearing songs from women with deeper voices, because I have a pretty deep voice. So I like hearing basically songs that I would be able to sing.
Right.
Like if I'm jamming out in the car.
Yeah.
I can't fucking hit the notes that Stephanie Beatrice was singing. She has a very high voice. So one, I appreciated that. And two, it was like the first song where we got that hint of like, oh shit, like it's not, the grass ain't greener over there. She's struggling too. And I think it was just unexpected. I didn't think that they were gonna, I don't know. I just remember really enjoying it.
Right.
At that point we'd gotten through maybe a couple songs.
Yeah, not many.
Not many. Yeah. But it was still where I was like, I don't know, like, yeah, so it was the first one where I was like, damn, I actually kind of vibe with this one. Yeah, I think it was just the first one where I was like, okay, this sounds like something I like.
Right.
What else can we do from here?
Right.
But yeah.
And for me, kind of getting toward like the emotional beats of the story. So this movie, like I mentioned, it deals a lot with family dynamics. Mm-hmm. And a big part of that is like, you know, Mirabel's tension with, or unspoken tension with her abuela. And there's a moment in the movie where they kind of finally, it kind of blows up, and the abuela, she's kind of recounting her story to Mirabel, kind of explaining why she was the way that she was. And like the story is sad as fuck anyway. But what overwhelmed me in the movie theater was I don't think I've ever heard a fully like Spanish language song in the theater like that, especially in a Disney movie. Mm-hmm. It was very powerful, and the story was very touching, and it was cool because like I think this is a universal thing, but especially as someone who comes from a Latin background, like it's so like a big thing that is kind of like not talked about is just like the constant feeling of judgment from others, you know, like others within our own family. And, you know, it's, you know, and it's not great, but it's like an unspoken like thing. And, so to see that portrayed in like a dysfunctional family tensions, was very powerful. But then, you know, we get so wrapped up in like how we're feeling, it becomes a negative like feeling. We don't take into consideration like what the other person's feeling. So watching Mirabel realize like, oh, I get why. Because the whole movie, I didn't particularly like the abuela character. I just thought she was so like her thumbs just yeah. But then you
realize
sit and
why.
Yeah, when you realize why, it's like, and watching her come to that realization, like you gave up so much for us. And that's like a really beautiful metaphor, especially for immigrant kids of, you know, children of immigrants who may not consider like everything that their families have risked for them. And that's why they kind of bear the brunt of like, you have to be perfect at everything.
I was going to say that during that full Spanish language song, when we hear, or when we see rather, Abuela's journey to get the miracle.
Right.
A lot of that imagery was immigration.
Yeah.
And they ended up in Colombia.
Right.
And I assume they started in Colombia and just moved like area to area.
Right.
But that imagery of people holding babies, wading through rivers, I mean, that's kind of universal. So to hear that song while seeing that imagery and seeing people like terrified, willing to walk with their newborn babies through water in the middle of the night to get away from whatever situation they need to get away from.
Right.
That's incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand a lick of what was being sung in that song. I don't speak any Spanish, but I understood like what it was saying, what was happening. And yeah. So that moment when Mirabel was like, that's a lot of bullshit you had to go through as probably a pretty young adult.
Yeah.
With 3 children and suddenly no partner with you to help you through that. I remember thinking like, oh, John's doing pretty well with this. And then I look over, tears streaming, and I was like, ooh, nope. Yeah.
I did a good job of controlling my volume, but I was sobbing. Even now I'm getting a little emotional thinking of it. Aww. But yeah, it was that was just it. When I say it was like much more intimate and like that's not a story I was expecting to see when you have all these magical elements.
Yeah, the focus wasn't really the magic. It was the family.
And that was another thing I really appreciated, because I figured, and I would have been completely okay with seeing like all these different like powers and gifts being used to work, but we didn't get all that.
No.
And that's okay. Because what we got was just this story. I mean, it was definitely something, like I said it in a tweet, it was definitely something my soul needed. Like, I know it sounds kind of cheesy, but like, I don't know. I never see, like a family that's like, that one looks like mine, sounds like mine, but also just to be like completely honest, like showing like that dysfunction it happens to everyone. That's something that we all have to kind of navigate through. I don't know. It was just, for that reason, it was a very beautiful movie to me.
Yeah.
With everything we said about the music and some of the story beats, because some of it's familiar, I would compare Mirabel to a Moana. She's kind of quirky, but she's, very gung-ho.
Yeah. A lot of Disney main characters.
Yeah, modern Disney tropes.
Yeah.
And that's fine. It didn't take me out of the movie at all. I want to talk a little bit about the animation before we, kind of wrap up with our final thoughts. Yeah. Walt Disney Animation, they did it again. It was very beautiful to look at.
Did anyone have any fucking doubts? I surely didn't.
No. We'll get back to that in just a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about one of my favorite parts of the movie. But yeah, just the colors they used, how vibrant it looked, and the way they shifted the lighting, that you really felt like you were in the desert in that river, when they were kind of, making their way, or when you first see the miracle happen and, the Encanto being created, how the house felt like a real living character was super cool. And how they made all that work. The various skin tones and hairstyles, hair textures was something I really loved. It was all beautiful. I loved it.
I agree. If you're interested in seeing what goes on behind a Walt Disney animation feature and like how it's made, I really highly suggest watching the Frozen 2 documentary on Disney Plus, and you will see how important specifically lighting is. Lighting absolutely makes or breaks an animated movie. And when it's done right, it looks like this. It's beautiful.
Yeah. One thing I really loved, and I think, because I don't doubt Disney's going to make whatever they make look good, Disney or Pixar. But one thing I was super impressed by, because I don't think I've ever seen it, was the dancing.
Yeah, the dancing was good.
It's not like they were doing any like super crazy choreography, but they were doing a lot of like traditional Latin dancing, and I don't know, just the way that they made the skirts flow and the way they, they got the arm movements, and it makes me think that they maybe use some mo capture to like get those performances down, because like it was super impressive.
Yeah.
That was just something that stuck out to me. I remember watching it and I was like, I don't think I've ever seen that. Even in like Coco, I don't think I've seen.
I didn't watch Coco.
Yeah, no, you didn't.
It made me Coco cry.
Yeah. Some final thoughts about the movie, though. This movie's very cute. It packs a little more of an emotional wallop than I was anticipating. But again, that's something I related very personally to, and I think a lot of Latin people will, for various different reasons. It's cool seeing, arepas con queso or papa rellenas in a movie. Like that's just buck wild to me. One of my favorite moments is there's a dinner scene, like a proposal scene, where one of the characters overhears a big secret in the movie, and they're just Mirabel sitting across the table from them, and they have the most hilarious, awkward stare off with one another. And that entire scene, it becomes like an entire scene of just like chismosas, just people gossiping about what's happening. And oh my God, it was one of my favorite scenes of the movie.
Yeah, that was my favorite scene too. That was hilarious.
Like,
and again, like relatable in a family. I think this, like, if you have, it doesn't necessarily even have to be a big family,
right.
But if you have like siblings, cousins that you're relatively close with,
yeah,
you'll relate to a lot of the stuff, like a family dinner
right.
type atmosphere, and just gossip among the family and all that stuff, and just like being annoyed by your siblings and your cousins and stuff.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, especially with Mirabelle, because I have an older sister,
right?
That there's that like inevitable thing where you either it's internal or external, but you compare yourself to them. My sister was super athletic as a kid, and I don't know if you can tell, but I was not. So there's always a thing. I was like, man, why can't I like be fast and strong like my sister? And then I don't know, my sister was probably like, why can't I just sit on the couch for 3 full days like Kendra? Man, she's got it so fucking easy.
Yeah, no, I grew up kind of similarly. My brother was a bit of a gym rat back in our day, and I was not. So yeah, like I think we all, like you mentioned, it's either internal or external. Go through that, but
you'll relate to the movie in one way or another.
Absolutely. And yeah, so overall, I think it's a fine addition to the Disney canon.
And it's only in theaters, right?
Right now, it's only in theaters. I'm sure it'll pop up on Disney Plus in a few months.
Yeah.
However, if you can do so safely, I highly, highly, highly recommend you go see this in the movies. One, just the visual aspect of it. It looks beautiful, and I think the best way you can see that is on a big screen.
On a big ass screen.
But also, it's really important that we support these types of stories. We're always advocating for more diverse stories being told on a grand scale. And the best way you can do that at this point in time is with your dollars. So I highly recommend you buy a ticket if you're in a situation where you can do so safely, that is, and there is still a panorama going on. But yeah, we definitely want to encourage major studios to continue to tell these types of stories and make these kinds of movies and this type of content. Because if for me, nearly 30-year-old man to sit in a children's movie and just sob because I see what looks like my family on screen, I can only imagine what that does for millions of other people, children, everything like that. So, and then you expose people who aren't of that culture to the culture, and there's only positive benefits that can come from that. So yeah, those are kind of my final thoughts on the movie.
I want to see someone make this house in The Sims. Somebody please make this house in The Sims. Yeah. I gotta see it.
Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Also, feel free to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Twitch. All right, see you next time.